All right. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Happy Leap Day. How exciting. This day only happens every 4 years, which is fantastic. I was like looking forward to my Facebook memories today and then realized that it was very empty because, again, it only happens every 4 years. So, thank you so much for spending this time, this day, this very special day with us today. This is Teachers as Creators with Screencastify. It is our first learner series. We have 3 of them with Screencastify. So, again, so excited that you all are here. My name is TR Deanna, they, them pronouns. I'm the community engagement person here at Modern Classrooms. And essentially, I'm just so excited to have Screencastify go over all of the great things that's happening, all the updates, and just everything that you can be using and utilizing in your classroom. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop talking. I will be in the chat. So if you have any questions, if you need any guidance or whatever, I'm in the chat as well. This is being recorded. We will be sending you the resources after the fact as well. And so with that being said, Jeremy, take over, and Todd, take over. I'm gonna take a seat back and I will be in the chat, y'all. So let me know if y'all need me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that introduction, TR. I just want to start off by saying thank all of you for being here. As we kind of go through some of these materials, you'll see a big theme here today, whether that's because of Leap Day or because of Screencastify is saving time. So I always like to kind of start off by letting you know I know how valuable a lot of your time is as educators and how finite it is. So my goal for something like this is to always introduce you to some things that hopefully in the long term save you some time and hopefully super enrich the lives of all of your students. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here and we can kind of get things moving. All right, so the topic for this learner series, we will have a total of 3. However, this is number 1. And this one is all focused on teachers as creators and on creating on-demand learning opportunities. Once again, as someone who was a former educator, I understand how valuable your time is and how sometimes you just have to meet students where they are when they are in a headspace to learn and kind of take on the things you're teaching to them. So hopefully with some of these resources, they can take the wonderful things you're doing with them in class and have these resources to take home, to work in stations, to really supplement a lot of the great work you're already doing. In terms of who I am, my name is Jeremy Frazier, and I lead PD for Screencastify. I'm also a former college educator and forensics coach or speech and debate coach. So was very happy to transition my skills from coaching and instruction into a more professional development role. And I'm also joined by someone very special that I would love to give Todd an opportunity to introduce himself because I'm so happy to have the opportunity to present today with an actual educator. So, Todd.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, Screencastify, as Jeremy said, it's a great tool for teachers to um, to be more efficient, so that we can help more students, obviously, but also it's a great tool to use for just differentiation with students too. But I'm a 7th grade teacher, social studies teacher, Rochester Public Schools in Rochester, Minnesota. I'm also part of a group of teachers in the district that support teachers with technology. And I recently went through the Modern Classroom Project as a mentee and have become a distinguished modern classroom educator, which has really transformed my teaching. And Screencastify has been a big part of that. So thank you, Jeremy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join for something like this. It's always a great opportunity to interact with folks who are actually using our product in practicality. So happy to have you here, Todd, and I'm happy to have all of you here as well as we kind of explore, hopefully, either continuing your journey with our product if you are already using, or maybe introducing you to some ways in which you can use Screencastify to further your outcomes as well. So, in terms of what our focus today will be, What we will do is first start off kind of going over Screencastify Record and how to download the extension and some best practices for going about the process of making a recording. I often feel as if it can be a little bit intimidating if you want to start using more video in your classroom, not going or knowing where to start. And Screencastify quells a lot of those concerns simply with its ease of use as a product. After we go over how to use Screencastify Record and a little bit of edit and some of the features within, we'll also give some practice time. So I promise Todd and I will not be yapping at you for this entire time. We will give you a chance to get your hands dirty and kind of get in there and get things moving. And then throughout, feel free to always throw any sort of questions in the chat. I am always willing to kind of get off the path I'm on to make sure folks are comprehending and having their questions answered. So yes, we will have some time for questions towards the end, but I would love if that question time was sprinkled throughout. So whatever it is, please let us know and we'll be happy to answer. All right, so moving forward, we do need to meet Screencastify Record and Screencastify Edit. So the first question I love to kind of start off with for all of you is, how do students benefit from being able to access content at any time? This is something I've spoken about with Todd for quite a bit in our meetings leading up to this. I would love to hear his perspective on that. And if any of you want to throw something in, feel free to do so as well. But that is the question of the day. How do our students benefit from being able to access content at any given time?
Well, Jeremy, one thing that I found out in introducing a unit, it's great to go over your learning targets, and if you're, whatever your assessment, going through the Modern Classroom Project, we call mastery checks and such, but and with the students being able to access them at any time, one thing that I found out, and I've had students say this, is those intro videos, it's great because I can stop it, I can rewind it, I can watch it again. But when you tell us stuff in class, sometimes I miss it. And they're very honest. They're like, well, I might have been daydreaming or whatever. And this allows them to do that. And then one other thing that I thought I'd just interject there too is, depending on, where you're at with technology in your school, whether you're one-to-one or not, a great use of this would be, let's say you're going to be absent and you have a sub, and you just make it quick. By the way, once you get into this, they don't take very long to make, but you just make a quick video of, here, this is what we're going to do today. And that makes life way easier for our substitute teachers.
Absolutely. And as Kristen put in chat, they get to hear from their teacher even when the teacher isn't around. And we're also doing a disservice to our students. We don't give them opportunities to learn maybe when they're in the proper headspace. We don't know what's going on in these students' lives outside of the classroom. So giving them an opportunity to have you around, maybe when they're in a better headspace, whenever that may be, is a really beautiful thing. So, and it's always something that I like to kind of reinforce as well. So I'm glad we've kind of delved through that, because that leads directly into how Screencastify can be a super effective tool. So it makes it super easy to hear from anyone at any time, because with a few simple clicks, you can begin the process of creating a video. So I'm going to quickly walk through how you will go about downloading the extension if you haven't. I won't spend too much time there because I want to get into the best practices once you do, but I want to make sure anyone who is not a Screencastify user has the opportunity to know how they will go about getting the extension downloaded. So the good news is this won't take me very long because it's super straightforward. What I can do is come directly to screencastify.com. That's one way. And from here, you can always click either of these large purple buttons here to get started. So let's say I click this one here. It will take me directly to the Chrome Web Store, because the first thing I always like to reinforce is Screencastify is a Google Chrome extension, meaning it lives within your Chrome browser once you have it downloaded. So for me, it says remove from Chrome because I already have it. But if you didn't, you could simply click here, give the appropriate permissions, and you could be on your way. The next best practice I like to give in making sure we have the extension downloaded and ready to go is to actually pin it. So if you click on this nice puzzle piece here, which has all of your extensions, I make sure that is filled in for Screencastify because as a person who uses this product multiple times a day, having it at the ready right here next to my browser is so pivotal to making my day a bit smoother. So simply by pinning it, I can click here and immediately get into the process of setting up my recording. So speaking of setting up our recording, what we need to think about as we go into creating one is what makes a video effective. So the things that I like to reinforce right from the beginning is I like to keep recordings pretty short, something I think that is important, just so that you stay within students' attention spans. I know Todd and I have discussed that as well. And also signaling, AKA telling your students or your viewers what is of importance in the video. And that can be done with Screencastify's annotation tools. And I'll dig into those in 1 second. So as we get ready to kind of start this recording process, I really want you to keep that in mind. What is important and only one thing at a time. Keep everything digestible. So for the sake of time, I'm actually going to hop right in and start our creation process. So I tend to default to this Bill of Rights infograph here, not because I'm a 7th grade social studies teacher like my buddy Todd, but because I like that it's so info rich. It's a great way to show a lot of what Screencastify has to offer because there is a lot of information on here. And if I was a student, I would be so easily distracted and not know where to look on this. So I tend to use it to show even the most info-rich infograph can be broken down into more digestible pieces using Screencastify Record and some of our annotation tools. So the first thing I want to do once I have up what I want to record, which is this infograph, is I'm going to click on my extension. From here, I'm giving a variety of options for the type of recording that I can make. And first and foremost, here is a browser tab recording. This is ideal if what you want to record is only in one tab, just like this infograph. If I wanted to jump back and forth between many tabs, a desktop recording would be far better. But since everything I want is in one central place in this tab, browser tab is perfect. Again, desktop is great if you want to do multiple tabs, or maybe even record an application you have open on your desktop as well. That would be your way to go. Finally, is a webcam recording. Let's say you don't care at all about sharing your screen in any way. You just want to connect interpersonally and show your face. You can always do a webcam recording. Next, I always want to make sure my microphone and my embedded webcam are toggled on. If I had multiple of either, I could always select one here. And my first kind of tip that I always like to throw out here is the show more options button here. So when you click in here, there are a few options that I love. First is you give yourself a countdown, which I think is great because I always need an extra second to get my life together before I start recording. And next, I want to make sure that my drawing tools are toggled on. So as I talked about, there's some annotations I can do to segment this out. I won't have access to those tools if that isn't toggled on. Finally, if this tab had any audio that I wanted picked up at all, I would need to make sure that tab audio was toggled on. So I'm good on my countdown. Drawing tools are good to go. Tab audio, don't have any, so I'm fine there. I can now hit record and get ready for my recording. And I'm actually going to pause because I can pause this down here, but I want to take this opportunity to actually show you our toolbar and our annotation bar. So as you can see by grabbing this in the far left corner, I can actually put this anywhere on the screen where I'd like. And we talked about keeping distractions off the screen, telling your students what's important. This is the first opportunity you have to say, maybe moving this somewhere else would make this less distracting. I'm going to move my toolbar around. However, before we kind of dig into ways to collapse it to make it go away almost completely, I do want to detail some of the tools within this toolbar. First, right now, I am actually on a pointer mouse, meaning wherever I click, I get this nice red outline around my mouse. This is great for any sort of tech tutorial. We've all watched a video or watched someone navigate on a website and gone, where the heck did they click? I got a little bit lost. So imagine you wanted to create a video library of tech tutorials for other staff members or for some of your students. Having the ability to track your mouse in that way would be really important. However, beyond that, if I actually click into mouse, I have a few more options. The next option is our focus mouse, and it is my absolute favorite for making instructional videos. So if we talk about only showing what's important, with our focus mouse, I can put a nice spotlight around what matters and tell my students, yes, there is a lot of info here, but I want your attention focused exactly where my mouse is. So once again, great for segmentation. Beyond that, we have a classic mouse and even some fireworks if you want to get a bit fancy there as well. Outside of that, we have a couple more tools that are great for segmentation, both our pen and our rectangle. So with my pen tool, I can underline key parts on my screen, put check marks next to important information, maybe X something out if it's not as relevant to what we'll be learning right now. I can change the color of my pen tool and also clear my screen from here as well. Beyond that, I actually have a rectangle tool. So you can do that same type of segmentation, but do it around larger bodies of text or larger images. And same concept, I can change the color or clear my screen as well. A few final things before I'll kick it to Todd to see if he has anything he wants to say about our tools is I can even put a sticker on screen if I like, or simply erase anything. Finally, I can actually stop my webcam if I like, or completely collapse my toolbar so it's way less obstructive to view. Todd, when you've made recordings, have you used any of these annotation tools in your process?
Yeah, I think my personal favorite is the rectangle. Just like if I'm pointing out, something that's really important. Let's say I was just pointing out the Second Amendment, or whatever, putting that rectangle around that. Jeremy, one thing I'd like to mention right now, Jeremy's going to do a recording off of one tab. But sometimes when you do instructional videos, you might use like Google Slides or Canva or something with several slides. When you move to a new slide, everything on the screen stays. So like if you annotate everything, it'll stay on the screen. So you have to make sure, and you'll get this once you get more practice, is when you're ready to move on to the next screen, you just hit that clear screen that Jeremy shown. And then there was two more things that I remembered, just 2 points. And I kind of, I learned this from making more and more. Talk in your normal voice. Don't talk, we could, I don't know, naturally, sometimes we might talk slower. So we're like, well, the kids got to get it. No, they can rewind it. And then the other thing is make sure that you do use the webcam and show your face, because it just puts a little personal touch on it for sure.
Absolutely. And yeah, it pays for students or anyone to be able to see who's trying to communicate with them. So I'm always happy to hear folks encourage the webcam. So now that we've gone over some of these tools, what we want to do now is I'm going to click play, let my countdown finish, and make a brief recording to show off some of these tools. All right, so now everything I'm doing is being recorded. So maybe I would tell my students hello and welcome to our unit all on the Bill of Rights. And I know there's a lot of info on the screen right now, but no need to be overwhelmed, because in this video, we're going to focus specifically on the First Amendment. Now, the First Amendment is pretty interesting because housed within the First are actually 5 distinct freedoms. So I'll just draw an arrow over that way. Those freedoms include the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of press, the freedom to assembly, and the freedom to petition. So I will maybe tell my students that by the end of this week, they'll be able to talk very confidently about these 5 freedoms and maybe even give examples of each in American history. So I finished my recording using some of my tools and click stop. What you'll notice is my recording immediately opened up here in a new tab. This is because anything you make in Screencastify, any video you make is actually stored in Google Drive, not on local storage on your computer. So once again, none of this will be on your local storage here, but actually in your Google Drive. So now that I'm on this page, the first kind of recommendation I give is to always rename your video. Since these are sitting in Drive, it can get really kind of hectic in there. So for my purposes, I always kind of put the date first and then any sort of title. For this, since I do this type of video for professional development, I just kind of shorthand this to BOR for Bill of Rights. So I have a video that I've made. And from here, there are some really quick and easy ways that I can share it out with other people. So from here now, the first and most straightforward is to copy your share link. What this means is that I can simply click copy here, and then the next time I would paste, it would be a URL that would lead directly to this instructional video. I do have some options to customize how I go about sharing it under these show share settings. So I'm going to click into these pretty quickly and talk over these. First, I can decide who can access the video. I can make it private for only myself. I can make it so that anyone with the link can watch it, or I can make it so that only folks in my org can access the video. If I pick anyone in my org, I have to enter a domain or domains. If anyone is outside of those, they will not be able to interact with this video. So if I move this back to anyone with the link, however, I need to decide how my analytics or my viewership will be tracked. In order to do that, I can click through here and see 3 separate options. Anonymously, which means you will be able to see that quite a few people watched your video, but no specific names or email addresses. You can track it by email address, or you can track it by nickname. As someone who used to work with college-age students, I would never track anything by nickname. So I tend to always default to email address for this, just for my sanity. And so, but choose to kind of track those analytics however you like. Once I pick that, I click save here. And once again, now that I've set up those settings, I can simply copy here and send this video or paste it anywhere I like. Beyond that, there are some more specific places you can send this directly from Screencastify. Here, I can actually send this into Gmail immediately. Something that I love to see folks use is actually turn a video into a QR code. So I can click here. This QR code comes up. I can copy this and then paste it, or I can click here and actually download it. So imagine if you had a Bill of Rights handout you went over with students and you just put this QR code on the top or bottom and told your class or their parents, here's a handout with some good info on it. However, if you want more supplemental information or perhaps a more in-depth kind of walkthrough, scan this QR code and it'll lead to a video. So it can always be used for blended learning as well. I can also send this directly to Google Classroom and assign it to a class as well from here. So plenty of ways in which you can share out a video. Right beneath that is your viewers. As we talked about when we chose our share settings, you can actually see who viewed a video, the date of their most recent view, and their email address. So total views here, and the date of their most recent view, which can be great if you really would want folks to revisit material and you want to make sure they have in a decent amount of time. So we're always thinking about how we can kind of further supplement the work you're doing to make sure a video is being watched in sort of a timely way as well. Does anyone have any questions about the recording or sharing process we went over before I jump into some really interesting things you can do with our interactive questions. And while we're waiting there for anyone to type, if they have anything, Todd, is there anything you would like to add about any of the kind of sharing or viewer analytics of anything I went over here?
I know with the sharing, I actually used the nickname, but I just told I actually sent one out to parents for parent teacher conferences, and I in the when I linked it, I put a little message above it if they could just put their first name, their last name, and their child's name in there. So that way I knew who viewed it. And you could easily do that, I think, with students too, is just say, all right, use first name or last initial or whatever. And I think that would work well. That way you get to see, who is actually watching them and such.
Yeah, always good to actually have those analytics there. If we don't have any questions in terms of sharing, I would love to jump into interactive questions. And then what we'll do, and probably in the next 15 or so, is actually give some time for you all to poke around the extension and kind of do some things. So what I would love to hop into next is interactive questions. So we've talked a bit about viewership and hopefully creating videos that your students want to watch that can be this evergreen resource. However, sometimes you do need a way to ensure a video is actually being digested in a way that is beneficial for your students. And one way to do that is with Screencastify's interactive questions. So how these work is I can embed questions into a video, and these questions have to be answered in order to scrub past that point in the video. So if I put one at 10 seconds in, you cannot scrub past 10 seconds without interacting with and answering my question. So I simply clicked interactive question from the page that popped up after I completed my video. And what I can do here is actually scrub through in real time. And as I scrub through, as you see this add question button, the timestamp changes there as well. So your annotation tools can actually be a bit of a shortcut to inserting some good interactive questions here. And what I mean by that is, let's say for me, the main takeaway of this is the 5 freedoms covered under the first. I can actually scrub through here and wait until I get to the moment where I put my 5 pin dots, as you can see under these freedoms, and know this would be a really good time to add in a question. So around 44 seconds in, I know I've drawn an arrow and talked about all 5 freedoms. So I want to insert a question here to really kind of make sure that is sitting well with my students. So I'll click add question. From here, I actually have 2 types of questions I could insert. I can do a multiple choice question, or I could actually do a short answer question. If I go about a short answer question, I could type it here. I could even give my students a max character length for their response, and I can choose how many points the question would be worth. One thing I always like to note that in order to encourage formative assessment, aka an assessment that isn't necessarily so attached to a grade, I can actually make this question weight 0 to give your students a space for reflection rather than always asking them to do something for a point value. So if you wanted to make this more formative or a reflection exercise, you can always put your question weight at 0. However, just for the demoing purposes, I'm going to insert a multiple choice question. And let's say I want my students to answer something pretty easy, like, if I could type, how many freedoms are covered under the first? Just something to make sure they're kind of tuned in with me. Now, I only need 2 answers, 1 correct, 1 incorrect, but I can enter up to 4. So I'm going to click add answer, add a box, click add answer again and add another. I know 5 is my correct answer, so I'm actually going to click next to that and note it as such there. Once again, I can give this question any sort of weight. So let's say we just want this to be worth 1 point. I can click save question here. And now that question is embedded into my video. It must be answered in order to scrub past that point. This is what that would actually look like from your student's perspective. So imagine you made a video, embedded a question, and then shared out that link. this is what your students would see. So let's say, for example, I try to go all the way to the end of this. I get told right at the bottom of my screen, answer the question at 44 seconds to continue. So I click start the video. Since I scrub through, it takes me directly to that question, but I can obviously come from the beginning and just watch. So I'm going to try to go all the way through again. I'll get stopped at my question. And what I love is, as we talk about on-demand opportunities, is sometimes your students need immediate feedback. So right or wrong, they get immediate feedback from all interactive questions. So let's say I click 5 to note that as my response and click submit. I'm immediately told that I got that question correct and that all my questions have been submitted. So as a student, I could kind of close out of this and know that my teacher now has that evidence there for me. In terms of what that evidence looks like from your perspective, is from this tab, we have questions up here. Next to it, we actually have responses. So if we click into responses here, I have a wealth of data I can look at now. I get my name here. I get the actual question here. It tells me I got 1 of 1. And it tells me my total score. So imagine this was filled with all your students' names here. From this select view, there's a couple other views I can get of this data. This just gives more of a name and email address. You see the question in its entirety and my correct answer. I can even come in here and edit the score if I wanted to, if I wanted to change anything as well. And for your short answer questions, you would actually have to come in here and grade them, because Screencastify obviously cannot automatically grade your short answer questions. So if you insert those, you can grade those from here as well. The last view I get is a bit more visual. So I get this kind of pie chart here to tell me how many correct responses I have out of everyone that's answered. So if you're more visual when it comes to looking at your students' marks, this is a great place as well. The last thing I would love to show before I open it up for questions or to see if there's anything that Todd wanted to add here is I have a couple more options to make this a reusable resource. I can actually download all of my grades here and download the CSV. Once I do that, I can click clear responses. All this data would go away, so I could either send this video out to a different class and get their responses, or maybe reassess my same class and see what have you learned since the last time you did this assessment. So again, in the nature of saving you time, we don't want you to create something that can only be a one and done for one class. You do have an opportunity to reuse this for multiple classes if you always go in, download your responses, and then clear them out there. So I'll once again see if anyone has any questions. And while we kind of wait for any of those to pop in, Todd, is there anything you would like to add about interactive questions?
Yeah, one other thing that you could include and that could align with your learning objectives is some guided notes that, so as the question pops up, it could, as they're answering the question, it could be connected to notes. That way they have the notes. They don't have to go back into the video and see what the most important points are. I've done that, and I think that works really well.
That's a great question, Stephanie. You absolutely can add a question to any video, even one you made weeks ago. So yes, there you don't always have to add them immediately. You can do that kind of post recording at any time. And yeah, and as for Todd, I hadn't thought about that. I think that's a great idea that, yeah, kind of give them some guidance in terms of having maybe their notes in front of them as they go to kind of answer some of these questions.
Jeremy, I'm glad that question was asked. I just did that last week. I had this video and I'm like, God, you know, I really want to add some questions, and I went because I didn't have questions embedded. So yeah, that's a good question.
If you want to make a point. Yes, you could absolutely insert any sort of open-ended question in this, and you maybe don't have to give it a point total if you just want your students to have a place to reflect. So for something like that, or for something open-ended, I could always come through, pick a short answer, and then keep it a little bit more open for my students. That's a really good question as well. And yes, there would be a way to do that as well. I can show that when I briefly hop into the editor. What I did want to show is someone asked, how would you add these later on? So with Screencastify, your My Videos page is where everything you've ever made in Screencastify lives. So here is my Videos page. As you can see, a lot of Bill of Rights and things from doing PD. But let's say I have this video all on creating a parent's newsletter I made for some content some time ago. Once I open up this video, I made this video, I believe 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. To add a question, I can just come over here to interactive questions, click here, and my video loads in and I can add a question in. So any video that you've made at any point, you can absolutely come in and add questions. It does not matter how long ago you've made it. In terms of making a copy, that actually is a great segue into the last thing I want to talk to you all about briefly before we give some hands-on time, and that is Screencastify's editor. So if I wanted to make a copy of a video with no questions, first thing I'll do is actually open up the video I have with questions, because once I pull this into my editor, those questions will not be there. So if you want your edited version to have questions, your order of operations should be to edit first and then add questions. So from here, as you can see on the top right, I have the option to edit video. So I'm going to click in here. It's actually pulling my video into our editor. And once again, it cannot pull any of your questions in or anything. So this is just my video with my annotations, no questions added. From within Screencastify's editor here, I won't spend too much time on these, but if anyone has any questions about a specific aspect, feel free to ask. I can do a few things. So let's say there's some dead air at the beginning of my video I don't want anymore. And I say, I think the first 5 seconds are that dead air. What I can do is actually click cut, and my video separates into 2 segments. My larger segment and this first 5 seconds I said I no longer want it. To get rid of that, after I cut it, I can click delete. And now those first 5 seconds are no longer part of my video. So that's one thing you can do. You can also crop your video, meaning let's say I left my toolbar here and I no longer wanted it in my final copy because I find it distracting. I get this nice orange rectangle, and anything outside of it, I can make actually disappear from my video. So let's say I resize there and then I go to done. That part of my video is gone. So maybe my video is less distracting there. So just a couple things you can quickly do in here. You can actually add a zoom in as well to zoom in on a portion of your video as an effect for emphasis. So I'm actually gonna click this and delete this, but let's say I wanted to zoom in right as I started talking about these 5 freedoms. I can scrub through, get to the point right around now where I start highlighting them, click zoom. I can resize this box to anywhere I like, but I'm going to make it just on my 5 freedoms. And now I can actually click this green zoom I added, so click right on it, and I can stretch it out to dictate how long my zoom lasts. So as I stretch this to make it longer, as you can see the video's playing, that's how long it will last until that point in my video. So with just a little bit of timing like that, I just inserted a zoom that will start when I start talking about the freedoms and end as soon as I'm done. So let's see how that turned out. Those freedoms include the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of press, the freedom to assembly, and the freedom to petition. So, and it zooms back out as soon as I'm done. So those are a few things we can do in the editor. If anyone has any questions about these, I would love to answer those a bit later. Just didn't want to spend too much time here, but give you a brief look, but really wanted to focus on adding in questions and sharing. The last thing I will say is to export this and get this version with my edits back to Screencastify, or the way I could get a version without questions into Screencastify is once I pull it into the editor, I can hit export, choose export to Screencastify, and maybe name this BOR with edits, just so I know, and click save. So when I go back to my videos page, I'll have this edited version with no questions and my original, because you are never editing your original video, always a copy. So that's a really quick look at the editor. Once again, if any specific questions are there, I'd be happy to answer. I know I had something in chat while I was kind of going over that, so I'll take a moment now to see what folks are asking in chat. If you give me 1 second. That's a really good suggestion, but actually, no, right now, sadly, there is no way to kind of link to an outside resource. However, in our next session in this series, all about Screencastify Submit, that is a fantastic way to kind of give your students some resources as they go about creating video responses. So hopefully you are able to join for our next session, because we will cover a lot of that there as well. So that is a bit of an overview of what I wanted to go over in terms of recording, sharing, and a bit of editing. If no one has any questions, I would love now for TR to kind of give us a bit of assistance and maybe hop into some breakout rooms for you all, so that if you all wanted to kind of either discuss with each other or just poke around, download the extension if you haven't, and maybe just start creating something and inserting some questions, just so you get a bit more familiar with the software.
All right, beautiful. Yeah, Jeremy, thank you so much for this. So question, how long do we have in breakout rooms?
I think we could do just about 10 minutes or so.
Okay, 10 minutes or so, y'all. So it's 42 minutes after the hour. We'll see y'all in about 52 minutes after the hour. This is a great way to connect with other educators who are doing something similar as you, and just kind of just get to know each other as humans as well, right? So think about how you've utilized Screencastify before. How do you anticipate on utilizing Screencastify moving forward? And then just kind of share your expertise and experiences with each other as well. So I'll see y'all in 10 minutes. And Jeremy and Todd, y'all are more than welcome to join whichever rooms y'all want to go to if you want.
Okay.
And you let me know which room if you don't know, if you can't figure out how to do it.
Okay. I'll give them some time to kind of poke around and maybe pop it towards the end.
Brianna, Kristen, Brittany, let me know if y'all need some assistance going to the rooms. Hi, Nicole, welcome back. I hope you were able to explore some when you were in your breakout rooms.
Yeah, for sure. So I would love to take these kind of final moments. We'll take up just a few more minutes of your time to see if there are any last lingering questions before we kind of get to some kind of closing thoughts and announcements. So,
Jeremy, we still have like 17 seconds and then folks will be coming in.
oh, okay. I thought we were back. My bad.
Yeah. Nicole was early this. I was like, oh, hi, Nicole.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for spending time with us.
No, this is really great. I've used Screencastify a little bit, but not in the as an extension, and so I'm having to refigure it out through the extension.
Yes. And then once you figure that out, then it's like gold because it's literally like click, 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 and then you're moving on. So hi, Mary. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Brittany. Welcome back. And Kristen as well. But yeah, we'll go ahead and start wrapping up. Jeremy, back to you.
Yeah, I was just saying, now that you all have some time and rooms and anything, I would love to see, are there any last sort of lingering questions before we kind of wrap up and give a few announcements about some great things to come in the next couple series or so. So we'll love to take this first second to see if there's any kind of closing thoughts or questions that any of you have. And if there are, you can even come off mute if you want, or you can just kind of throw it in chat, whatever is most comfortable for you.
Hi, this is Kelly.
Hello.
Just come and have I've been using Screencastify for a while now, ever since COVID and everything. So, I love the fact that now we can integrate questions. It's awesome. But I just want to point out, I love how you had the screen there of your actually I'll put my video on of your of everything. I teach math. So what I've been doing with the modern classroom is I've been, here are the notes and doing it. So just your suggestion, I think I'm going to change my videos a little bit to the highlighting, and I've been using the tools, but not all the tools. So I really love the things that you pointed out. I don't think I probably knew that they were there, but didn't really, and then that fact with that you can zoom in on the video. I had no idea about that. So I feel very confident with Screencastify, so I love now that I can add these new things. So thank you. This was awesome.
Well, no, that's what we like to hear. And once again, like once that comfort gets there, you can start to do more things like play around in the editor, or what we'll cover in our next series is Screencastify Submit. So students can turn in video assignments to you that you can grade when you see fit. So yeah, I feel like, and Todd has talked about that with me as well. Sometimes just getting over that first hump, whether it was back during COVID or maybe now. And then once you kind of get into it a little bit, you can always expand and add on. So I'm glad, even as a person who's been using for a bit, you have some good takeaways from today.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, if we don't have any more sort of questions or sort of feedback from anyone, and once again, if that comes in, I say in my PD sessions all the time, just interrupt me because I'd rather hear from you than hear from me. So if there's anything else you want to add, please do. But yeah, in closing, I just wanted to kind of walk through a lot of the benefits that you can see when you start to kind of integrate things like this. If I go back to sharing pretty quickly here. But yeah, it's just a way that you can even use this to give feedback to some of your students. And it's just a great way to get a backstage pass into their thinking by having them make a recording. So imagine all the things we showed you how to do. Your students can use all of these as well to maybe show their mastery, to show their procedure. It's a really wide open resource for you and your students. Todd, is there anything else you would like to add sort of in closing before I kind of end with talking about our next couple series?
Well, I do remember one thing, especially when you're first starting out, or even if you're not, because I was kind of in the same boat. I've made a lot of Screencastify videos, but when I started with the Modern Classroom Project and was making some of the intro to unit videos and one thing and such, I think one good advice was don't try to be like perfect. Like if you make a little like misstep, it's okay as long as it's, not like something to do with the content, but it's okay to make a few mistakes, and just the more you can show how natural you are to the students, I think the better.
Yeah, it just humanizes you to like, because they know you're not perfect because they're not perfect. So yeah, and it just takes away a lot of the pressure of feeling like you have to make these pristine videos when you first get started. So that's always something to keep in mind as well. I said, yeah, I mean, it's really true. Like you're gonna make mistakes in your recordings. So it's just always something to keep in mind for your students as well. So I'm always happy to hear something like that. Well, that is all I had for you. In closing, there was a few more things that I wanted to kind of share with you. In terms of what we have coming up next, there will actually be two more parts of this series. The second will be focused all on Screencastify Submit. So how do we get your students to amplify their expression through our Submit tool? The way I like to describe Submit pretty quickly is instead of collecting a stack of papers from students, imagine you could collect a folder of video responses. You create the prompt, you put all the parameters and tell them what they need to do in their video, send it out, and all of those responses come to one folder in your Google Drive or can go directly to Google Classroom. So that's our second part that will be on March 14th. And finally, the final part of this will be still using Submit, but let's get out of the more kind of typical assessments and do some more out of the box stuff. So showing how you can use Submit and Screencastify to let your students kind of talents show that maybe don't always show in pen and paper assessments. Are they singers? Are they musicians? Any kind of gift that they might have or any type of different learning style that they might have, Screencastify is a great way to show that as well. So always wanted to put it out there that we would love to have you all come back and join us for those as well. And lastly, if you had any feedback whatsoever about this session, this is a great QR code that the Modern Classrooms put into this deck that can be scanned. So we would love that feedback as well. Yes, and TR, as you can see, just put a link in there as well for you.
Woohoo. All right. Well, Jeremy, Todd, thank you so much for your time and sharing all of the things that you did. This is really dope. And it gives me something to play around with as well, which is really exciting. And everyone else, go enjoy this very special day. Do something that you don't typically do, because again, it only comes every 4 years. And so with that being said, we're going to stop right on the hour. I'm a little bit early, but please go do something that brings you joy. And thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Todd. We'll see you for our next learner series. And so, all right, team, I'll see y'all later. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.